So Cornell, an American surrealist, born 1903, died 1972, pioneer of the procedures of collage, montage, assemblage art, experimental cinema. He's somebody who, in America, we nowadays think of as a big name, as a major figure in the sort of middle of the 20th century. But in France, it's not quite the same. He's known, but he's not so well known generally in France. This exhibition that is ongoing is the first museum exhibition on Cornell's work in France in 30 years. It focuses on the two decades, the 1930s and 1940s, which were simultaneously the heyday of surrealism in New York. It begins with a gallery, which we call the Surrealist in New York, which is basically just a kind of Hall of Fame, in photographs by two photographers, Man Ray and Lee Miller, of many of the figures, artists and also art dealers, who are important in the exhibition, and also portraits of Cornell. And the picture on the right is a 1931 untitled portrait of Joseph Cornell by Lee Miller. Later, Levy said this, quote, "He came into my gallery while I was arranging the first Surrealism exhibition in New York, that would put us in early 1932 or just before, wrapped in mussed paper under his arm. He carried it to our boat, and I included that in the first exhibition because he had tied the North Star to his mast and spun the wind like hair on the sails of his boat." This sets up a kind of metaphor of an artist whose concerns are ethereal, otherworldly, and large, and you'll see that a little bit later. Second part of the exhibition, a gallery devoted to collages, the first medium that Cornell engaged in, the first of the five formats I talked about. We're very lucky in the exhibition to have this very important collage, subtitled Schooner, 1931, which is in the Hirshhorn Museum, the first dated collage of Cornell, which shows you a kind of pure example of his use of a method which also was used by many artists and non-artists, writers and others in surrealism. In this collage, you have an old engraving of a boat. Juxtaposed to it, you have the images of a rose, and in the rose, an image of a spider web with a spider. A good example is this idea of poetic juxtaposition, the slamming together of things that don't belong together ordinarily into a new unity, producing a kind of spark of surprise. That's a kind of fundamental definition of surrealist activity. Breton was not just talking about the subset of works by Cornell that I've tried to present quickly here. He was actually referring to Cornell's art in a broader sense. He was actually trying to connect to things like the great shadow boxes, and that's how I want to end. I said that works like Post Nobles of 1939 get us to connections with surrealism through the word image, relationship, or through the idea of the double image. But what you can't see, unfortunately, in this slide, and what I only understood when I helped to install the exhibition in France, is that the surface of the glass plays a very, very important role because it catches reflections. When you look at it and you see the reflections caught on the glass, suddenly the inside of the missing profile, sort of the cutout profile of the woman, takes on a kind of ghostly shimmer or sheen because of what's in front of it. In other words, it's not just the image that counts, but it's the layers that count. And it's the way in which glass and crystal and color and also optical levels, the fact that the image of the dancer is not on the back of the box, but suspended in the middle of this shadowy space and so forth, which really counts. Breton talked about Cornell in terms of anaglyph, in terms of deceptive art, I think, because he wanted to say that these boxes had something in common with things like stereoscopes, which when you look at through a stereoscope, you see an image which you know is a trick, but what you're getting into is your enjoyment of the translation of the two dimensions into three, and the very funny kind of perceptual space, which is not the real tangible space of the world, but also not just the accumulation of parts that you might imagine in a photograph, which is a kind of intermediary space, a space of illusion and a space of art, which only these kinds of deceptive images can provide. Thank you very much. If you have any